Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this in the world. I hope you guys are doing okay. So, it seems that chaos is upon us and Mortal Kombat 1 is receiving a huge update for its year 2. So we're going to be reviewing the latest Mortal Kombat trailer from the San Diego Comic-Con, which basically outlines year 2 for Mortal Kombat with 6 new characters and a brand new story mode. So we're going to talk about the good, the bad and the downright ugly in this trailer, and whether year 2 might be able to save Mortal Kombat's reputation amongst its most die-hard fans. Right off the bat, it seems like they're going to continue with where Mortal Kombat 1 ended, which is a good thing because I do think you need to wrap up this multiverse stuff in this game. There's no real way to know if this is going to close the multiverse stuff down for good or if they're going to be using it to actually launch an MCU style Mortal Kombat franchise, which will be somewhat disappointing for me, but that's just a personal thing. I am not a big fan of multiverse stories. From a gameplay perspective, however, it does actually give them the opportunity to try a lot of cool things out, and there are a lot of unique routes they can take with the characters, so positives can be pulled from this because it's a video game and it's not a movie. And of course, as I've said before, a video game's main function is its gameplay, but how they decide to go about that is really what will draw me in or push me away. Now immediately coming off that, they introduced 2 new versions of Sector and Cyrax, and I've got to say, this is one of the bad parts of the trailer for me. Gender bending characters has always been a big L, in my opinion. It rarely ever works and usually ends up falling flat on its face. I get that Sector and Cyrax are already in the game as cameos, so they're trying to flip the script a little bit, flip things on their heads, but judging from this trailer, they don't even seem to be cyborgs anymore, just girls in super suits, much like Iron Man and War Machine. And that kind of ruins the whole tragedy and backstory of the Sector and Cyrax characters, but it remains to be seen what they actually do with them. It does seem like one of them might actually be up to no good and trying to destroy the Lin Kuei again in some sense. However, just people in super suits, in my opinion, is kinda lame. But we'll see if it's actually that. I'm jumping to conclusions, obviously. That's based on what I saw in the trailer because you get to see their faces and it does seem like they are able to move in and out of the suits whenever they want, but the actual characters and the character models just don't seem very cool to me. They almost remind me of Black Panther's Royal Guard, but that just might be me, I'm not too sure. And then we move on to the last playable Mortal Kombat character for this trailer, which is the return of my personal favorite, Noob Saibot. Now I have been super critical of everything that NRS have done with Mortal Kombat, and so when I heard in the leaks that Noob Saibot was going to be one of the returning characters, I was about to tear them a new one if they didn't do him justice. But I'm happy to say that upon seeing this for the first time, reviewing the trailer a couple of times after that, this might be the best looking Noob Saibot I think they've ever done. There's a few things to point out here. Firstly, Noob Saibot has always been the original Sub-Zero Bi-Han, who as we know is the Grand Master of the Lin Kuei, or he was, which obviously means that he's one of Earthrealm's strongest fighters. He's nobody to scoff at. This would put him at the very top of Earthrealm's toughest fighters, and yet in almost every Mortal Kombat game, Noob Saibot is treated like an afterthought. From the moment he became Noob Saibot, he never actually won an on-screen fight. No fights of significance were ever won by this character. Every single character he came into contact with beat him, so he never made sense to me. An undead, enhanced Sub-Zero is somehow worse. However, that looks to be changing with this version of Noob Saibot. This version of Noob Saibot looks far more deadly, and the way they animated him in these cutscenes is fantastic in my opinion. For a guy that can use clones, historically it felt like he never really did or never really understood how to utilize them properly. But the moment you see this Noob Saibot, you immediately see him using his clones as if he is a ninja from Konoha and has been training directly under Naruto. And it looked glorious to me, I'll be completely honest. Diversions, teleports, attacks from every single angle. This time around, Noob Saibot actually looks like a force to be reckoned with. So as a Noob Saibot main, that was very pleasing to watch. Moving on to the fight choreography in this trailer. I went back and I looked at the Mortal Kombat 1 fights, and I think they've actually changed things up a little bit, and they've changed it for the better. It looks much more animated and more like a video game, less focused on hyper realism and more on presenting us with some cool visuals. The way Noob Saibot is fighting Scorpion and the other characters in this trailer is actually really cool in my opinion, and I like the fluidity in motion. Obviously this is all CGI stuff and not actual gameplay, but I'm reviewing what they've given us. The story does look interesting enough to give a try, and being a fan of Noob Saibot, I'm very interested to see where it goes and how much of a role he's going to play in it. That being said, said, I don't mean to sound like a downer now, but only 3 Mortal Kombat characters and another 3 guest characters, it seems a bit like overkill to me. This game now has 6 guest characters. That is too much considering how many Mortal Kombat characters are not on the roster. Now let's talk about the guest characters for a moment, starting off with Ghostface from Scream. This is one of those who the hell asked for this, and who the hell would even want this. Now don't get me wrong, I liked the Scream films when I was growing up, but at no point did I ever think to myself, you know what, I think having Scream in a fighting game would be so cool. At no point did that thought ever cross my mind, and I highly doubt it crossed anybody else's. Even if this is marketed towards casuals, I'm not entirely sure which casuals are going to be picking up Ghostface. Scream's a franchise from a bygone era, and even though we've had some recent iterations, it just seems out of place to me. Seems like a wasted slot if I'm being completely honest. I haven't always liked the guest characters in Mortal Kombat, but I can definitely see them fitting in the universe in some capacity. This has to be the most outlandish one in my opinion, and I am just not interested in him at all. Then we move on to Conan, and again, I grew up watching Conan, I like the film, I think it's cool, I think Arnold Schwarzenegger is a cool actor. Did I ever imagine Conan in a fighting game, or that someone I'd pay for? Absolutely not. I can't see him pushing many sales either, another underwhelming inclusion. I don't think you should have included another version of one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's characters, since we just had one in Mortal Kombat 11, but that's just me. In my opinion, this is a wasted slot. And then we move on to the T-1000, and this is definitely a nobody asked for this, but thank you anyway, because this has got to be one of the coolest guest characters ever. This may be on par with Spawn in my opinion. The T-1000, for those of you that don't know, is from Terminator 2, which is considered by many to be the greatest action movie of all time, and it's hard to argue against that. Hell, you ain't gonna catch me disagreeing with that. He was menacing, unrelenting, and unlike anything cinemas had ever seen at the time. I remember watching Terminator 2 when it came to TV at home when I was about 10 years old and being absolutely mind blown at how good it was. Until this day, the CG holds up, the action sequences and music are top notch, and the ending still hits me right in the feels. And the T-1000 was actually pretty terrifying. No expression changes on this guy's face whatsoever. He was just a force that moved forward until he got his target. So yeah, this is probably the best guest character inclusion in the entire game, at least in my opinion. But 6 guest characters just seems like overkill in my opinion. I'd go for 3 at the absolute maximum. You might be able to push for 4 if you do them really well, but that's only if the roster is already really big, and MK's roster is not that big. I mean, it's not anything to scoff at, it's not small, but it's not a Tekken sized roster, and so I think guest characters in this game are too overdone now. All in all, it's a 50-50 trailer for me. There are 2 standout characters here, Noob Saibot, who looks much more powerful and imposing in this timeline, and the T-1000 because he has unmatchable aura and comes from a film that has a timeless legacy. But then there's 4 characters that are a bit meh, like who really cares? Female Sector and female Cyrax just look lame to me. I'm sorry guys, I don't mean to be a downer, they just don't look cool, and I don't like the redesigns. I don't like the fact that they're just women in suits. Maybe they're not, who knows, but that's what it looked like. That's what the trailer presented us with, and that's what I have to go off. Personally, if I was an active Mortal Kombat player, I'd be happy because my main character is back in the game and he looks better than ever. But objectively speaking, this pack is an overall L in my opinion. The story mode looks good, don't get me wrong, but the guest characters and Sector and Cyrax, that just seems like more of an L to me. 2 to 4, you gotta give it an L. But then we move on to the animalities, and there's not much to really say here. I like them, I think they're really good. I think they should have been in the game from the get-go. I don't think they should ever miss a Mortal Kombat game. They're actually really cool. I think animalities is one of the unique things about Mortal Kombat that separates it from other fighting games. They're just a very cool inclusion. They're over the top, they're super brutal, which is something that I always want from my Mortal Kombat games. I always want the fatalities and brutalities to make me cringe, and I think they've done a fantastic job with that. Havik being the new bad guy actually looks pretty cool. I'm interested to see what they do with him and how he's going to affect the realm and where it's going to go from here. So all in all, the trailer is very 50-50 for me, but I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Did this trailer hit for you? Do you think this is going to save Mortal Kombat 1? Do you think they've done enough for the game? Do you think there's going to be more coming out for the game, more quality of life changes, and do you think there'll be significant changes to the gameplay to help the game's longevity? And that is going to be really the most important thing here. If they can change things up in the gameplay, fix some of the cameo situations, and make the game more engaging, then there might be a light at the end of the tunnel for Mortal Kombat 1, but that remains to be seen. Anyways guys, let me know what you all think. I'll catch you all very soon. Take care and peace.